principle of dealing with an addiction is the principle of mind re-engineering. In science, you can call it re-engineering, brain re-engineering. In spiritual terms, we call it mind renewal. When you begin to program your mind to understand the consequence of certain action and the implication, especially the spiritual implication of certain things, and your brain is being re-engineered by that new information, your brain will begin to understand that I don't think we should be doing this thing. I don't think we should be doing this thing. How do you now re-engineer your mind like that? How do you re-engineer your brain? How did you engineer your brain in the first place? It was through information. I mean, how did you learn how to masturbate? How did you learn how to do drugs? It was information. You saw somebody do it. Somebody told you about it. You watched it in TV. You listened to music. You saw young people having sex. You saw, it was just information. So if you replace that information with a new set of information, that's why the Bible calls it mind renewal. Pastor Ocho usually says something. My mentor, he says that there's a song we used to sing when we were young. Macha, macha, mo, macha, macha. Satan don't fall for gutter. You see, Satan is not in the gutter. Satan is in your mind. So as simple as that. If you must deal with addiction, you will have to learn to deal with the demon in your mind. Addiction after a while becomes spiritual, but it is being controlled. The steering of the addiction is in your brain. If you can flush out the old information that got you there and bring a new set of information, you will realize that after a while, your brain will begin to repulse certain action. How many of you have friends that if you tell your friend today that I slept with somebody, do you know I slept with somebody? Your friend would say, oh wow, are you serious? So how was it? Tell me about it. If you have those kind of friends, there's no way you can deal with sexual immorality, because you are around a group of people who see it as normal, who have trivialized it. But imagine you were with a group of friends and you come and tell them, I slept with somebody yesterday, and they say, please brother, you need to go on your knees. We need to pray for you. God needs to strengthen you. Let's ask God for forgiveness and trust that you don't do this anymore. What happened? What was the weak link? How did it happen? You should avoid that next time. And they're counseling you, trying to pull you out of that trap. You begin to feel like, are you trying to say this thing is not normal? That's how addiction is. I remember one time I was in school. Then I had a babe, and she came to see me. She came to do an assignment at my place. And then it got late, and she had to pass the night. And in the morning, my pastor saw her leaving my place, and called me and said, Godwin, did this girl pass the night at her place? I said, yeah, PJ, yeah, she slept over, but nothing happened. And PJ said, that's not acceptable. What do you mean that's not acceptable? I said, this is not acceptable. You don't do that. We don't do that here. What I'm trying to say is this. Satan has found a way to commonize and trivialize certain things. That's why addiction is selling very fast. That's why addiction is all over the place. It has become rampant. In fact, if you are not sleeping with somebody in this present age, if you are not sleeping with somebody, you are not watching porn, you are not masturbating, you are not doing alcohol, you are not doing drugs, it's like you are weird. People will understand if you are not fornicating, but you are doing drug or you are doing alcohol. They will say, okay, you don't like women, but you like alcohol. Well, it's balanced. So you don't like alcohol, you like women, it's balanced. But you don't do alcohol, you don't do this, you're not addicted to this, you're not addicted to that, you're not addicted to this, what's happening? You're not doing anything. It's weird now. Because everywhere, it's like Satan has, I told you the strategy of Satan is to commonize it, trivialize it, normalize it. Once a particular act has been normalized, there's nothing you want to tell your brain. Your brain will hold on to it and say, this is going to be our escape route. Every time we feel bored, we'll do it, because somewhere deep down in your mind, that particular action is normal. It does not hold what. It's not. How do we say it in these days? It's not that deep. So you slept with somebody you're not married to. She's my girlfriend. It's not that deep. So how do you move from there? You have to re-engineer the brain. That's why Apostle Paul says the weapon of our warfare are not carnal. They are mighty through God to pulling down of stronghold, casting down imagination. The fight, the battle against sin is in the mind. If you can flush out the old set of information that normalize certain thing in your mind, and you bring a new set of information that re-establish that certain things are not normal, it will be easy to deal with those addictions. I'm not saying the moment you start doing that, you will stop the addiction. No, I'm saying that it will give you a level of power, because now your brain will be willing to say, okay, can we cooperate? It's like, do you understand? So simply, let me say it in a very simple term. There are ways that those information entered your mind subconsciously. You were not even planning it. Do you know, funny enough, you might not even know that those information entered and some things have been normalized. Somebody used to say that it's wrong to sleep with somebody you're not married to. After a while, the person started saying, if the person is your girlfriend or if the person is your boyfriend, then it's fine. How did the person move from it is wrong to just make sure it's your boyfriend? A new set of information was brought in. So the more you expose your heart to certain things, you're on Twitter, you've seen all the whole saga happening there, you are seeing movies, you are seeing everything, your favorite songs, your favorite musicians are worldly, and all those ideas are being passed on very softly. Very softly, they're being passed into you, and you keep swallowing them. After a while, you find that there's really nothing wrong with these things. Because now your brain has so assimilated so much information about it that it has normalized it. If, on the other hand, the things you are feeding on are pure spiritual things, I'm not saying don't watch movies, don't listen to music, I'm simply saying know the kind that you feed on. I'm not going to say more than that. Know the kind that you feed on. Just be careful what enters into your system, because it is what you eat that determines who you are. In other words, it's the thought processes and those information you let in are the things that affect your thought processes. If, on the other hand, the things you listen to are pure, your friends, your conversations are pure, the things you feed on are pure, after a while you realize that some things start to not make sense again. I'm telling you that there was a time, I told you I dealt with addiction for how many years? There was a time I used to hear PJ say it when we were in school. PJ would say, it's possible to live without addiction, masturbation, pornography, sex, you can, as a young man, you can do without it, alcohol, drug abuse, drug addiction. In my mind, I'm like, how? You will not have sex, you will not masturbate, you will not watch porn. But that was predominantly my own. I was not into alcoholism and all of this. But I'm speaking for myself. I will not have sex, I will not watch porn, I will not masturbate. How? I used to think it was not possible. Because I've tried it, I've experimented it, I've tried. I've concluded that it was not possible. But when new set of information, the Word of God, basically, when new set of information from the Word of God started entering into my mind, after a while, I just noticed that I started agreeing with the fact that it was possible to do without it. That's where it begins from. Many people dealing with addiction, go and ask them, somewhere deep down in their mind, they don't think that letting go is necessary. Some people will admit that they are addicted to certain things, but they don't see the need to want to let go. Like, it's just masturbation. I know I'm addicted to it, but what harm is there in it? I know I'm sleeping with people who I'm not married to, but what harm is there of it? What harm? Do you understand? But the more you keep feeding on the Word of God and exposing yourself to things that are built around the world, maybe music, maybe movies, maybe just make sure that even when you're engaging in secular things, make sure that they are void of dirt. I'm not saying don't engage in secular activities, but even when you are engaging in secular activities, make sure they are free of dirt. It's not like you're feeding on things that expose you to bomb and this and that and you say you want to be free. So after a while, you will realize that your brain begins to see the possibility of doing without this thing. That's not all, but that is where it all begins. That's the grassroots of dealing with addiction. It begins with re-engineering of the mind, renewing the mind, to begin to see the things that have been normalized as being abnormal. That is when you can have the power, you can now begin to exercise the power of letting go of that addiction. I hope you have been blessed. Let me say a short prayer before you go. I commit everyone listening to this to your hands. I pray that if there's anyone who is under certain addiction, certain things that has held them bound and slaved them for years, I pray that by the power of your Spirit, by the power of the risen Christ, that you pull them out of such addiction and you give them a new start, you give them a new life. In Jesus' mighty name, amen.